So I just saw that there's a school that created an entire VR learning center. Basically, they converted a gym into this immersive VR learning space where they have like 25 different students that can all be in VR at the same time. Let me just show you this post because this blew my mind. Here's a picture of the VR lab being built at a public school, 100% grant funded from private companies. You can kind of see what it's starting to look like here. So everyone will have their own little space along with an Oculus. That way they can all stay safe and not run into each other, slap each other, hit each other. What a great idea. You know, like kids are always looking to be on their tech. Obviously they love it. And we have these tools that can really enhance learning in entirely new ways that is going to be more native and just, I would say, like familiar to these kids. You know, you might be wondering, oh man, you're going to give all these kids VR headsets and they're just going to run free and they're going to go and play Iron Man or, whatever game is going crazy at the time. But they actually are using this software called Arbor XR, which commands a fleet of XR devices. So basically they can manage what software they can and cannot use on the devices. So pretty much safekeeping. It's been a long time coming, and it takes a while for new tech to come into school systems, but eventually it happens, particularly when private companies say, hey, let's figure this out, right? Apple's done it for so many school systems, but I was like, okay, if this school's doing it, there's got to be other schools that are doing it. And I just wanted to kind of go and figure out what's happening with VR in education right now. What is being used, what apps are being made, and just have a 2023 refresher on VR in education, VR in school systems. So that's what this one's going to be about. I got a lot of links, a lot of apps to show you, so I'm going to run through them quick. But for the most part, this is the broad overview of what's happening and what I'm seeing. So first, I pretty much just Googled like what other schools are using VR in the classroom, and I found that North Carolina University A&T is actually created a VR campus. So basically, they designed a virtual model of their campus, and now students can not only use VR in the classroom, but they can access their university from home via the VR headsets. Another one I saw, Jackson Public Schools implement virtual reality in the classroom. Once again, local private company. Here's just an example of what they're thinking of how to use it. Using VR headsets and immersive experiences created by Lobacki, students will be able to interact with, for example, civil rights leaders or explore the structures of smallest cells in the animal and vegetal world. Another one, Morehouse College is teaching the first ever VR Black History class. This was earlier this year. Barbersville Middle School in West Virginia has a virtual reality math class. And the idea is that this program will offer scenarios where you actually need math skills in the workforce. Oftentimes I feel like we're all like, man, I never used the math that I learned in school. So this is supposed to be a course that shows you exactly where you might use math in the real world. So that's what I'm seeing broadly. There's probably a lot more schools that are bringing VR into the classroom. That was just a little taste, little glimpse. Beyond that, though, I'm super interested in this company in particular, Class VR, because they're designing their own headsets for the classroom, which I think, generally speaking, I think school systems might feel more comfortable if, it's a device that is a closed system, so it's not the Oculus and you have a public app store where you can just use anything, but really a headset designed specifically for education. They have the 4 to 7 year old one, the 7 to 11-year-old modules, 11 to 14. So they're really trying to cater to each age demographic, and then even offering vocational courses and career training. Another one that is kind of in this realm is Viative. They make a ton of different learning modules. You can go on YouTube, type them in, and kind of see what they're starting to create. Beyond that, another one, Unimmersive or Unimmersive, I'm not sure how they want you to say it. They create a ton of different learning modules for education. As you can see, more geared towards young kids, learning about dinosaurs or the human brain, exploring the International Space Station, the Titanic, ancient Rome, even anatomy. So as you can see, there's a lot of different companies trying to vie for this market. And really the reason is because I saw this stat on Markets and Markets. The forecast for the augmented and virtual reality and education market is expected to grow from $9.3 billion in 2018 to $19.6 billion this year. So obviously there's a lot of money that people are thinking could be made here. A market growing at 16% is pretty fast growing. Another very interesting stat I saw in the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report is that, as we scroll down, by one popular estimate, 65% of children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types that don't exist yet. The job market, the labor market, everything's moving very fast. We all know that. We all see it. And really, what I see this move as is, schools that are bringing VR, they're just going to be giving their kids a leg up, because we know that massive companies are, from Facebook to Niantic to, even Sony, like they're all trying to figure out, hey, how do we get a headset in every single household and actually provide value to people? So we know that there's going to be an economy in these headsets, right? And there's actually going to be jobs revolving around us living and working and socializing in these headsets. So I applaud the schools that are getting ahead of this and really figuring out, hey, how do we bring this into the school environment without it taking away from actually learning and making it feel like it's just entertainment, which, wouldn't be all that bad. With that being said, I do want to run through some of the VR learning apps that I found that I was like, wow, I wish if I were a kid in school, these are the apps that I would want to be using instead of, listening to a teacher speak all day. The first category I would say is about history and class field trips. Everyone loves a good class field trip, and especially when you get to go out of the school, right? And this is the most obvious place for VR to hit us. This was an app that BBC had created a while back called 1943 Berlin Blitzen 360. You can kind of see how you can, spin around and see what it would have been like if you were in an airplane during the bombing raid of Berlin, which, you talk about really bringing people into history. Very fascinating way. National Geographic has one of, the more popular apps as far as exploring the world. And then also, I thought that this one was fascinating. Anne Frank House VR, and basically, they created a replica almost of where Anne Frank had hid during the Holocaust. And you talk about really providing a way to show what it was like to be, in a small sense, living during the Holocaust. I see this as great supplemental material to, reading Anne Frank's diary, which is something that a lot of us did in school. Another one, Google Arts and Culture for a while has been making these virtual field trips, which very, very fun, very cool. They got ones in the arts, science and tech, geography. You can go and check out the art of Yangzhou, and it's completely immersive. You can hop in, and it's pretty fascinating. It's a different way to learn, right? After, I would say, travel or history focused or field trip focused type of apps, there's a lot of language learning apps out there. Houses of Language VR is one that's geared more towards a younger audience. Another one that's geared towards that younger audience is Nountown. If you're an adult, Mondly is a great one for learning languages in VR. And really what these apps offer is a way to almost feel like you are a foreign exchange student learning the language as you go in real places where you're going to be actually using it, like the supermarket, at a movie theater, in the office, or whatever it might be, or talking to a neighbor. Or I'm currently in the midst of learning Spanish. A lot of the methods that I'm reading on are saying, truly the best thing you can do is learn a bunch of vocab and then just go to wherever it is that language is spoken and live, talk to people, get the on-hand experience. And obviously that's not possible for everyone, for price point or just, time-wise, whatever it is. But if you can do it in a VR simulated experience, yes, it's not as good or as the same as doing it physically, but it's a step beyond just sitting in a classroom and doing your vocab over and over and over. So I think language learning, there's a reason why there are so many VR language learning apps out there. Then there's also arts in VR. Tilt Brush is not only the premier arts app, but it's one of the best VR apps in general. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play around in. I've done it a lot myself, made comics, just tried playing around. And when I think about even my school district, you know, when they had to cut some of the funding, the arts were usually the first things to go, you know, the art supplies and all this. And really, you know, school should be about creativity and inspiring kids to want to learn or to explore or to make things, right? And so arts VR apps are, I think, a great tool that will just bring creativity into the school system. On the other side of the spectrum are math, science, and engineering apps, of which there are some pretty cool ones. So Gadgeteer has a couple different modes. It has puzzle solving mode, where they have 60 different physics puzzles, but also this maker mode where you get to create your own little, what's called a Rube Goldberg machine, which is basically just chain reactions, you know, like, oh, if this thing tips over and then it runs into this and that and that, you know. So like, you talk about having a fun engineering experience in school. Man, I would love this instead of, you know, sitting down and learning all the physics equations. This would inspire me to want to learn those things. Adam Savage from Mythbusters back in the day, he has Adam Savage's Tested VR, which basically he brings you into his little studio and he shows you what he's building, what he's tinkering with. And once again, another way of expanding a kid's mind to think about what's possible. So that's what I got for VR and education. I know it's a lot. Truly, if you want to explore any of these things that I put out before you, or just want to stay up to date on the next iteration of this, if you click the link down in the description, it's going to take you to everydays.wtf, which is a journal that I work on with Q Harris and Terry. And every day we ask ourselves, what's the future? And then we go and show you what that is. And the reason we do it is because we want to help you future-proof yourself and really feel empowered by the opportunities that are coming with technology. And so, like I said, we'll have all of the links that I visited in this video in that link right down below. And every single day, we're coming with another theory on the future, another way for you to expand your mind, expand the possibilities, and just make sense of this crazy world that's driven by tech, which we're living in today. So until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.